are warning if President Biden shuts down the Dakota Access pipeline, it would cause food prices to soar. Back with Jonathan Honig and Rebecca Walser. So, Jonathan, here's how it works. If they shut the pipeline, oil is going to have to move from the Dakotas. That's where the Bakken shales are. And it's going to have to move by railroad car, displacing all of the Corn Belt farmers' produce, and that will cost Corn Belt farmers about $1 billion extra. In addition, oil prices will probably go up. In addition, it's a lot more dangerous to transport oil by rail than by pipeline. So it doesn't seem to make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't make sense from an economic perspective, David. But as that gentleman said on our package there, it's purely political theater, not unlike the previous president when it came to tariffs. For the liberals, for Joe Biden, the Dakota Access pipeline is this major. It's political theater. And that's the goal, David, of the environmental movement ultimately is to raise prices, is blackouts, is to make life more difficult for man. And certainly a carbon tax would do that. But you point out really the salient point here. What ends up happening is that you raise prices. The trucks and rails become overloaded with commodities that can't be transported via pipeline. Pipeline is the cheapest, the safest way to transport this carbon fuel, but they're not against the cheap and safe transport of carbon fuel. They're against carbon fuel whole cloth. That's why these type of policies are front and center for the Biden administration.
Well, Rebecca, to Jonathan's point, I mean, that seems to be the only way that this does make sense if you want to make it more expensive to use oil, because even environmentally, I mean, that's the thing that gets me. If they want to improve the environment, you don't switch to rail, because rail is much more dangerous. The chance of an accident happening by rail is much more frequent than by pipeline.
Yeah, the Biden administration and all of the people that want these economic or these environmental policies brought forward, David, they want them yesterday. And someone forgot to tell them that we are in the middle of still of a global pandemic, and that economically speaking, this is probably not the time to pursue a carbon tax, close down pipelines, 570,000 barrels a day. And you're right. Obama administration did a study in 2015 that showed that the Keystone pipeline was safer to be transferred by actual pipeline than rail. There's a study that's done by the Environmental Scientific Technology Group that says 2017 under Trump that said 61 to 77% fewer greenhouse gases emission through the pipeline versus rail. So this is clearly going to increase greenhouse emissions, and they don't care, because their ultimate goal is to control the price of energy and move us to something else. And it's going to be very expensive to do that. And so they want to increase the price and cost of everything to force us to go that route.
Well, Jonathan, the other thing is 79% of our energy, which powers our economy, comes from oil, gas, and coal. 79%. If you try to cut that back as much as this administration wants to do, the only way you're going to be able to do that is by cutting our economic growth dramatically. We could be at levels of economic growth that are subpar for years and decades to come.
Yeah, I mean, David, and it's not just an abstraction, economic growth on a spreadsheet. I mean, look what's happening in wide swaths of Texas, for example, today. Aren't we glad that those who do have access to cheap, reliable fossil fuels have that to power, whether it's snow blowers or anything else to help keep us safe? So this idea of a green energy future is a fantasy, especially since so many of the so-called green energy solutions, like Tesla, ultimately run off of fossil fuels anyway, in this case, coal, for example. So, government, once again, needs to get out of the way, but that's their goal. Raise prices, raise costs, make it more difficult for us to use the fossil fuels we need to live.
And I should just mention that, meanwhile, it's very cold out there. So, I mean, the whole global warming stuff, I don't know. Considering this winter, it's there's a lot that needs to be considered here. Rebecca, I owe you one. We ran out of time. Thank you both, Rebecca and Jonathan. Good to see you.